Sharon Stone is one of those people, so it gives me great joy to award her the Gorbachev Award.
I wanted you to look in the mirror and look at yourselves and know that you had made a difference.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sharon Stone.
I'll come back.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much.
Prezydenta Lecha Wałęsy o wręczenie nagrody.
Oh, that's... Thank you. I hold this word up. I hold it up because I share it with you. When I stepped into this job as an AIDS worker, it was a terror. It was a terror to say the word AIDS. If it hadn't been for my friend, my colleague, the brave, the incomparable Dame Elizabeth Taylor, the word AIDS would have been a whisper, a darkness, a secret. But her courage, her conviction, her ability to shed her glamour and her light, her ability to take off her jewelry and know that the light that she shed was more important than a material object, was more important than her stardom, was more important than her need to be liked, shone light in an area that shone compassion and humanity. She taught me a lot. She taught me a lot in many ways. She was there for me when I had a cerebral hemorrhage. She was the first person who was there for me. She taught me on an individual level that compassion starts with one. The thing that I have in common with each and every person on this stage is that every one of us was asked to do one single act of kindness. One single small thing at home, including His Holiness. His Holiness was asked to step up and become the 14th Dalai Lama. He didn't have to. He could have faked out and said, those aren't my belongings. I don't really want to be the 14th Dalai Lama. It's not an easy job. Each and every person on this stage could have said no when they were confronted with the question of will you? Would you? Do you? Can you? I can tell you that when someone stepped up to me and said, do you think you could stand in for Elizabeth Taylor tonight? She's not well. Could you do this AIDS event? I was apoplectic. Could I step into those shoes of the movie star, the legend, Elizabeth Taylor? It seemed insurmountable to me. But could I not? And that's a question that each and every one of us here will face. Because you wouldn't be in this room today if you weren't being prepared for this very question. You wouldn't be listening to these things today if you weren't being prepared for that moment. If you haven't already begun that moment in your destiny. The question is, with how much integrity will you meet that moment? With how much conviction will you open your heart? With how much love will you meet that moment of you? Because it won't be a moment. It won't be 2 moments. It will be a journey. It will be a lifetime. It will be your legacy. I can't tell you how grateful I am to have been asked. I can't tell you how grateful I am to the people who have joined me on this journey here today, to my assistant Tina, to my sister Kelly, to her husband Bruce, to our friends Musette, to Lisa who came with me. These are all people who have journeyed with me around the world, who have said yes over and over in the middle of the night, day after day, because saying yes is a journey of conviction. It's a journey of putting your popularity behind you. It's a journey of standing up when standing up is hard. When standing up is the last thing you feel like doing. But stand up you must. Stand up is a question of solidarity. Peace is an action. When I began with AIDS work, there were 11 million people with AIDS. I remember trying to explain to people that we were a global world, that everything we did affected one another, that every time a worker was lost in an African factory, that factory would close because Africans have the love and compassion of one another, and they will shut down their workplace to go to the funeral, to go and honor the family of the person that's lost. And eventually, as the number of AIDS victims rises and rises, that will affect the global economy. As we continue to use third world workers because we think they're cheap, we think their lives mean less, it will ultimately affect our global economy. Because these people who you belittle seem to have more conscientiousness about one another. No one wanted to hear me, and the numbers rose, and the numbers rose, and yet we didn't have a cure, we didn't have a vaccine, and we didn't have drugs to treat. As time went on, AMFAR, that I work for, the American Foundation for AIDS Research, all of our profits go to scientific research. And we eventually funded the research to find the drug nevirapine. Nevirapine is the drug that we can give to pregnant mothers so that their babies will be born AIDS-free. Now, in America, we have almost 100% now of children who are born AIDS-free. But still, all over the world, we have millions of people who are not able to get nevirapine. And even when they do, in third world countries, when they get nevirapine and the baby is born AIDS-free, the mother is faced with another horrific question. because that mother gets an AIDS-free baby and powdered milk. So what is she going to mix that powdered milk with? Filthy ditch water that will give that baby cholera? Or AIDS-infected breast milk? Is this a question that we can leave a mother with? In all good consciousness, can we? In all good consciousness, can we have borders and boundaries that separate us one from another and not have a sense of longing and loss? In truth, do borders really exist? Or are they just the impact of the fear in our hearts? The fear that we'll lose control. Control of what? I ask you to turn to the person next to you, because even though we're here in peace, have we seen the person who's sitting next to us? Could you take a moment and look at the person who's sitting next to you? It's so nice to hear the laughter, because isn't it joyful when you see the person next to you? And that is just what is crossing a border. It's the exact same thing. It's looking left and right and seeing the person next to you. I can tell you that now that we have drugs, we have still lost 40 million people to AIDS. There were times when the burden of that felt like I was going to fall on the floor and never get up again. And yet, the fact that you, all of you, stayed with us at AMFAR, stayed with us at the Elton John Foundation, stayed with it at AIDS Project LA, stayed with us at the many, many organizations that I've had the great pleasure of working for. I can't tell you how much good work you have done. We have changed the face of AIDS, but still, one child dies every other minute. I want you to think about how many children have died since we came here this morning. And I want you to feel the weight of that upon you. Because until we erase every border of prejudice, every border of inconsideration, and until we use every bit of who you are and who you were meant to be, until you stretch yourself out to the fullness of greatness of your own perfection, the puzzle piece of humanity will not fit together perfectly, and there will not be an end to hatred and to disease. I ask you, stretch yourself completely, and end the pain. Thank you so much for acknowledging me today. I cannot tell you how proud I am. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Szanowni Państwo, to była